Hello and welcome to the Detective Case
and Detective Closed podcast.
We're your hosts. My name's Aaron Shirley.
And I'm Brian Townsend.
Today we're talking about a different area of law enforcement. Normally, especially for citizens, when they think law enforcement, they think uniformed officer, they think patrol car, and maybe in some instances you have, your investigative units, detectives, maybe in dressed as like suits or polo shirts. A lot of times we're not thinking of some of the undercover work that we do in law enforcement, or the really deep undercover stuff that we do, where we're actually hanging out with and associating with criminals, trying to make a bigger, better case. Do you want to introduce our guest today?
Yeah, we're happy and honored to have a distinguished guest, Jim Weber, here today. And Jim, thank you for being on and agreeing to talk to us.
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate it.
So let's start with your law enforcement career. Can you kind of walk through your law enforcement?
Sure. Went to college and majored in criminal justice. I thought, maybe that's something I'd be interested in. Took some classes. I liked it. Graduated. At the same time, I went through the local law enforcement academy. I was in Southern Missouri at the time, so we went through the basic academy. Graduated from that, and then I got hired by the local sheriff's department down there in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Started out in the jail down there. So, what I like about my career was I was fortunate enough to, I think, start at the very bottom in the jail, learning how to interact with people, learning how to talk with people, learning how to process people. And then from there, I kind of took a twist in my career, and I went from working in the jail at the sheriff's department to an opportunity with the Southeast Missouri Drug Task Force. I got hired to work for them and did that for about 5 years, and found in that time frame, I really like investigations. I like to do this. I like the long-term aspect of it. I like hand-to-hand. I like undercover work. So at some point that came to an end, and I eventually worked briefly for the state of Missouri as an investigator with the Missouri Attorney General's office. And I worked in the, luckily for me, in the methamphetamine prosecution unit. So traveled the state of Missouri doing methamphetamine investigations. And then in that time frame, I decided I think I want to take it up a level and pursue a federal career. And, during my career up to that point, I had met so many folks at DEA, FBI, ATF, and kind of saw what they did and was learning the trade craft of the undercover aspect of law enforcement. And I applied with the United States Customs Service, got hired as a special agent, started out in Chicago, Illinois, and I was assigned to the narcotics smuggling unit up there. So that really is where my career really took off in long-term investigations and undercover investigations. And in the time frame I was a customs agent, the 9/11 terrorist attacks occurred, and that drastically changed the environment of law enforcement. And they, once they created the Department of Homeland Security, they transitioned all the United States Customs Service agents over from the Treasury Department to the newly created Department of Homeland Security. So I was an agent there with Homeland Security, and I did that for about 22 years and retired 3 years ago. And here I am now. I'm retired from law enforcement. I teach criminal justice at a community college outside of St. Louis. And I have a business where I instruct certain concepts and elements of law enforcement, like undercover, long-term, informant development. So that's kind of my long rambling story about law enforcement for me.
Well, that's awesome. I have a couple questions there. How long were you in Chicago?
Just under 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not during 9/11. The whole time.
Yep. Absolutely.
Now, early on in your career with Homeland, HSI.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did you work undercover there?
No, for the first probably 6 years of my federal career, I did not. I was strictly an agent, like a case agent.
Learning the ropes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important in today's world. I think a lot of young people get into law enforcement and they graduate the academy and they have maybe through no fault of their own, an unrealistic mindset of, hey, I'm going to be a homicide detective, or I'm going to go straight to, I'm going to be an undercover, you know. And it doesn't always work that way. And I think it's beneficial for the officer or the agent to, like you just said, learn the ropes, build a foundation of your career, and kind of develop what you are interested in, and then kind of focus on that and go in that direction.
Learn how to put together an investigation, different perspectives, and then work the undercover or whatever
Yeah.
role it.
Yeah, correct. Correct. In that first time frame as an agent, I had working in the narcotics group, you would oftentimes utilize undercover operatives and undercover agents, and you would interact with them. Hey, this is what we're thinking about the direction of our case. Do you think you could do that as an undercover agent? And you work with them and you learn how they operate. You learn how they could be beneficial to your overall investigation. So I always suggest that to people that are getting into law enforcement.
Did you happen to do any undercover prior to your federal?
I did.
Okay.
Once I bounced out of the sheriff's department and I was fortunate to work at a task force, it was more of like short-term undercover work, street eyes, hand-to-hand stuff, quick hit stuff. But that really got my feet wet on the undercover world. And I'm like, man, I like this stuff.
And that's the expectation. When people think undercover, it's the short, easy stuff, right?
Right.
Like AS, people can see like you don't look the part of like a police officer, right?
Right.
You can show some of your ink, right? Like it's like
right. Exactly. And that's often been a topic of conversation through my whole career. I've always, since a teenager, liked tattoos for whatever reason. And I got my first one when I was 17 years old, and, slowly added to my collection over the years. But I found that actually benefited me in the undercover aspect of work. And certainly in some of the specific cases that I worked, gang cases and outlaw motorcycle gang investigations, it was beneficial as well. But you're right.
Even criminals believe the myths, right? They think, well, police officers are all going to look clean, tidy, cut hair, no tattoos.
Right.
They believe the stereotypes, right? Or they very stereotypical. You have to tell me if you're a cop.
Oh,
right.
How many times I've been asked that over my career? Yeah.
As a trapman if you don't, right?
Right. Exactly. You're 100% right there. Yeah.
It's awesome. So early on with the CMO or with the
CMO drug task.
Yeah. I worked with, we may have crossed paths in the past.
All right.
Your name was familiar to me early on.
It was, I was down there 92, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that time frame. And I've kept in touch with those guys even till today.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Yeah. A lot to talk afterwards.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Period.
Yeah.
So the short-term duration undercover early on, just hand-to-hand buys, informant.
Street corner, you'd get local police would call the task force and say, hey, we have a problem area in our city. And then we would look into that and address it. And oftentimes it would be like an open air drug market on the intersection of, First Street and Main Street. They're selling, whatever, crack cocaine on the corner. And you would do quick hit, when you say that. Typically you'd walk up or you'd drive up in your car and they would approach you. They'd ask you what you're looking for. You'd tell them, and it's just a very quick hand-to-hand transaction.
As you know, that could be a very dangerous situation when you're going into an unknown. You may not know your targets, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see an individual selling drugs at the corner of Walk and Don't Walk or wherever. How do you mitigate some of that? Are you wearing a gun? For folks who aren't familiar.
Sure, of course. Yeah, that is a great question, and that makes this case comes to mind when I was actually working for the drug task force. It was a scenario where just that, hey, we had a complaint of a certain residential area. They were selling cocaine, crack cocaine, and there was an informant that could introduce an undercover to the distributor. So I was matched with this informant, and the informant and I traveled to that area on one day, and I was introduced to the distributor, did a quick purchase of crack cocaine, said thanks, and went on our way. A couple days later, when you're working those types of cases, you want to build the evidence. So you're going to want to come back and make a second or third purchase to bolster your case, to enhance it. So a few days after that, we wanted to circle back and attempt a second purchase, but the informant was unavailable. But I felt comfortable enough the way the first deal went. We don't need the informant. I think they'll recognize me in the vehicle. So I went solo, and at the time we had put a transmitter in the vehicle I was in, and we only had one person available to do cover or surveillance. So I drive up there I was in a truck, Ford truck, and the individual from the original transaction walks up to the passenger side, opens the door of the truck, kind of leans in. We shoot the breeze for a little bit, tell him what I'm looking for. He's like, yep, hey, here you go, no problem. We do a quick hand-to-hand right there in the vehicle. And I'm thinking everything's great. We have our pleasantries, say goodbye. As this is going on, I see a vehicle in the rearview mirror come up and park. I was on the street, and this vehicle parks right behind me, and it's got 4 individuals in it, and they all get out of the vehicle. So by this time, the individual I was buying from hops into the passenger seat of the truck with the door open still. And I'm seated in the driver's side with my door shut, window down. These 4 individuals get out of the car, 2 on each side. They walk up. One walks to the very front of the vehicle. One walks right to my driver's side door, the other to the passenger side door, and another in the back. And instantly the hair on your neck goes up. You're like, this is not, this is not normal.
It's five versus one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm hoping that my transmitter's transmitting, and I'm hoping that my cover or surveillance guy can hear what's going on, and the level of tension in my voice and the conversation, and hoping that, cross some fingers and hoping all goes well. The individual here, right at the driver's side door, window down, sticks his face in, and he's talking across me to the passenger. They're brothers. This guy's clearly under the influence of something. Clearly, bloodshot eyes, watery eyes, erratic behavior. And, I'll save the profanities, but this guy is like, who is this guy talking about me? And they're arguing right across me about who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there holding the crack cocaine that I just purchased. And they're arguing. And this guy's like, hey, what did he want? What did he get? And the guy says, hey, he just bought some personally used crack. And he goes, oh, you want some crack? This guy right outside the window. I don't say anything. He goes, hey, I'm going to give you some crack today. It's free. And you're going to smoke it right now.
Wow.
And the truck was surrounded. I'm sitting there by myself. And he goes, if you don't, I got this 357 right here. And he pulls his shirt up, and I see the handle of the firearm. And he goes, Chico, and he points across to the guy standing outside the passenger side. I'll never forget this. Chico has a Tech 9. I didn't see it, right? But just telling me about it was enough for concern. So this individual, he reaches into his pocket. Sure enough, he pulls out several rocks of crack cocaine, and he bends down and picks up a soda can, and he starts making a homemade crack pipe. And I had never seen that before. Like, even though I was a narcotics officer, I didn't know. It was relatively in the beginning stages of my undercover career. So he picks up this soda can. I'll never forget it. It was like slow motion occurring right in front of me. He's punching holes in the side of this can. And he's looking at me. And he goes, it's your lucky day. You get some free crack today. And he makes this pipe. And I hear he takes the crack. And I will never forget this. He drops it on the can. And I hear it ting, ting, ting. It's like, it was almost like enhanced. Yeah. And I'm watching it, and it seems like it's in slow motion. And all the while, I'm trying to figure out, what the heck do I do here? Like, what do I do? Like, this guy's got a gun that's threatening me. This guy's may have a gun over here. And there's 5 guys to me. And I'm thinking, where's my cover? Where's my surveillance right now? So I'm just trying to figure out what to do. So he actually, he leans in the window and he's got a lighter and he's flicking that lighter right beside his homemade crack pipe with crack on it. He's flicking it. He's laying it into me. And I don't know where this came from, but thankfully the truck was still running the whole time. I never turned it off. So I just dropped, it was a column shift, right? Shifter lever. Boom, throw it, drive, and I stop on the gas. And he falls out, like he falls backwards outside. And we lurch forward. There's nobody in front of us. We lurch forward. And the passenger door slams shut with this guy in it. And everybody kind of falls away from the vehicle as I'm romping it to get out of there, right? So it almost seems like a movie. Gravel's, flying on the street, and the tires kind of screech or squeal. Boom, we take off. And the passenger's like, "What is going on?" He goes, "What is wrong?" I go, "Bro, your brother's crazy, man. Like, what? I'm not here for this stuff right in the middle of the street." And then he and I get into an argument. As I'm trying to get away from these guys, they jumped into their car.
Chase you. Okay.
So they're chasing me, and we're through a projects area neighborhood. And I'm trying to weave my way out of here as quickly as possible with these guys on my tail while I'm arguing with this guy. There's a lot of learning points in this story. All right, I'm going to get to these.
I'm at the edge of my seat here.
Yeah, no, I'm going to get to.
This isn't a movie.
No, this is real. Like, people, when I tell this, are like, "You're kidding me." No, but it's real, and there are some learning points.
How many of these types of operations had you run up to this point?
In my career?
Yeah.
At that point, I'd say over 20.
Okay, so you had some street level bucks.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't like brand new.
I got you. Okay.
But it was relatively in the beginning stages.
Yeah.
First year of working as an undercover.
Definitely first time this has happened.
Oh, absolutely. Like, embarrassingly, I didn't know how you made a homemade crack pipe. I do now. You know what I'm saying? So we're driving through, and I get out of this neighborhood onto a county highway road. And the passenger, his booking information, he had a criminal history, said 350 pounds, but he was well over 350 pounds. I forgot one of the great parts of the story is when he first got in, he had a gigantic bag of Cheetos. He would always sit on his stoop and eat Cheetos while he was selling crack. So this comes into play later. He's got this bag of Cheetos in the truck, and we're arguing. I'm trying to calm him down, and I'm trying to figure out what to do, and I'm trying to get away from these guys. I'm on the highway accelerating. And at the time, it was back, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with this, the pinhole camera, and it was in a fanny pack. Okay. So this was audio and video recorded. So I've got proof that it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the fanny pack was on the seat right between us. And as we began to wrestle, this guy's trying to grab the wheel. Right. So we're struggling as we're driving down the highway. And I also had, it was during deer season, I also had the cover surveillance guy was a prolific deer hunter down in that region. He had a massive antler rack from the season before. I'm like, "Hey, those are cool. Let me throw them on the floorboard of my truck just for show." My backstory was I was just a country dude, hunter and stuff like that, driving a pickup truck. And we had these deer antlers on the floor, and they were like a gigantic 12-point rack. I get some distance between these guys, and this guy and I are fighting. And he sees the fanny pack bouncing around. He's like, "What's in that? What's in that?" His brother had gotten arrested years before, come to find out, by an undercover with a pinhole camera. So he was savvy.
Yeah.
He was savvy, and he was alarmed about that bag suddenly, right? So we're fighting over this bag. I'm like, "I can't let this guy get the bag. There's a camera in it." So he picks up the deer antlers as I'm driving out the floorboard, and he's swinging them at my face. "I'll kill you. I'll kill you." And he's swinging these, essentially a weapon, a sharp weapon in my face. So I'm accelerating, man, and I'm trying to fight this guy off as I'm driving. I built great distance between the chase car, and I slam on the brakes, right? And it was a gravel, soft shoulder come to a screeching halt through the gravel. And this whole time I was sitting on my gun, right? It was time to do something. As he continued to you know, swing these antlers at me, this weapon at me. So I pulled the gun out from underneath and I put it in his wrist and said, "Get out now." And he opened that door and he bails out, and Cheetos flew everywhere, crack cocaine flew everywhere. And he's on that soft gravel shoulder, sliding and falling, and he's reaching for the crack. He actually, the crack that I purchased, I lost it in the fight that we were having. And he actually grabbed some crack off the floorboard as he was exiting and struggling. So once he hits the ground, I pull the gun back and stomp on it again because I see the cars catching up to us now. So he's fallen by this time in that gravel, big, heavy, overweight guy. And I'm back on the highway and away I go. And the car pulls up behind and they scoop him up. And by that time I get away, nothing further happened there. I get back to the sheriff's department, to the meet point, and I'm like, where is my surveillance?
Yeah, I'm curious too.
Where is my cover? I call him on the phone. He didn't hear any of that.
Oh,
he had no clue. He had no clue. The transmitter stopped transmitting towards the beginning. Once I went into that neighborhood, the buildings and the signal from the transmitter at the time, it wasn't transmitting. So he was shocked. He had no idea that went on. So going back to your question, there are things that you should and shouldn't do in those types of scenarios. Never put a weapon in your vehicle. Never put anything in your vehicle that can be used as a weapon against you. That never, ever happened again. Ensure that your communications work prior. Don't just hook it up, turn it on, and say, all right, we're good to go. Test it 1, 2, 3 times, make sure it works. And definitely have more than one person on your cover or surveillance team. So I think that answers the question.
Wow.
That's the outside the box thinking, right? Like, deer antler, not a weapon. It could just be used as a weapon, right? You don't think of 10 steps ahead all the time.
Correct. You're absolutely right. And I use that. Like I'll teach some classes, and that's in the undercover class that I teach. That is one. Like no matter what it is, evaluate it before it's inside your area, inside your scope when you're conducting an undercover transaction. Maybe it's a heavy thermos full of a liquid. Maybe it's, I don't know, a huge textbook of some sort, certainly deer antlers, anything that can, a bookend, whatever, anything that can be eventually used as a weapon, don't have that in your environment there. Hard lesson learned.
And big time planning, right? And we know it's for all police officers, even like when we're field training, right? Even if it's a burglar alarm, while you're out, you have to be thinking scenarios. What if there's a car out the driveway? What if someone's leaving the scene when I get there? What if the door's open? It has to be the same thing in a cover room. What if he gets in the car with me? What if he grabs a gun on me? Like, I need to pre-plan all these things so that like I have options, and the options can be quick.
Sure. Yeah. I never in a million years would have anticipated a car rolls up by our bumper 4 deep and 4 subjects get out of it that are armed. And I don't know this for a fact. I believe he was under the influence of crack cocaine at the time. With that incredibly erratic and agitated and violent behavior, I believe.
Had you had any training prior to this or any of your operations when you were at the task force? Any undercover specific training?
Yeah.
You have? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. They would have you.
No.
They would have you attend the Missouri State Highway Patrol. And you guys know this, but for listeners that might not, the Missouri State Highway Patrol ran that task force at the time and still does today. So you would attend the Highway Patrol's undercover training course. In addition, I was fortunate that opportunities came up where I was able to attend the DBA undercover training course, as well as an ATF undercover training course, all in the beginning of my task force career there. So certainly did have training, and it was basic training. It wasn't long-term advanced undercover training, but it gave you an idea, but they certainly didn't discuss deer antlers in your
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Thinking about all those things that potentially used against you. One other thing you mentioned, you said the work backstory. So can we talk about that a little bit? How important is having some type of undercover, persona?
Sure. Yeah. Let's break it down into two elements. In a short-term environment, short-term undercover investigation, it's not as relevant or important. It is important, maybe a basic driver's license or something like that, an alternate identity, an undercover name, something along those lines. To where, say, in that scenario that I just discussed, say initially, guys like, hey, bro, are you really who you say you are? Show me your license. You could have an undercover license. It says I'm Mike Smith or whatever to further that investigation. So it can be helpful there in the short-term investigations. But when it comes to something more long-term or prolific, it's crucial to have a backstory, or different agencies will call it a legend, but it's just essentially an undercover identity. And it's more than just your basic undercover driver's license. It's in the case that I discussed yesterday in the Invaders Motorcycle Club, the undercover investigation there, extensive backstory was created for that undercover identity, to include a credit history, to include automobile purchases, home purchases, an Accurate or a LexisNexis profile, social security number tied to a certain region of the country, employment history. So really legitimate stuff. And that came into play in that particular investigation because as I was pursuing membership in that investigation, pursuing membership with the gang, they had a paper application that you had to fill out. And I call it the McDonald's application, because when I was young, you didn't go online and fill out an application. But you had to go to McDonald's and get a piece of paper and write your name and your address and your date of birth and all that stuff.
So, let's repeat this again for folks who aren't along the book.
So, yeah.
This is a criminal organization. This is a motorcycle club. 1%.
1%. Yep.
Who has a paper application. You have to put your name and your address, your social security number, and they're going to vet you. They're going to look into this.
Oh, they do.
You're part of this criminal organization. So I want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And they oftentimes these organizations, these criminal organizations, have tentacles everywhere, to where they may have a family member or a close friend or a contact that works in some sort of capacity, to where they would have access to certain databases. They run you in mules, they run you in NCIC, they run your DOR, they run your license plate, they run your credit history. And come to find out, in this case, after I submitted that, it was very extensive. Family, your phone number, your everything, your work. You had to include a picture of yourself, and that caused great concern. Okay, do they have facial recognition capacities? That's a concern to think about as well. If they do, would that match? If I have, Jim Weber's Facebook page or Instagram page, where I post pictures of my hobbies and my family, would that picture I submit be matched through some sort of facial recognition? Those are concerns that you have to have when you do this stuff.
So they're doing serious background investigations.
Oh, they are. They are. And the individual that was in this particular instance, he was employed at I guess I'd call it a Fortune 500 company in the security department. So who knows what kind of capacities or access he had to run stuff. But come to find out, the identity on the application I filled out was run somewhere in an apartment complex. Like when you go in to, hey, I want to rent an apartment here. Okay, hey, fill out this application. They run your credit history. That occurred in this situation. So, and not in my experience and not in this investigation, but I've heard it from coworkers and counterparts that these organizations also go to the great lengths of hiring a private investigator to look into you, to ferret out all that information that you furnish to them, to hire a polygraphist to conduct a polygraph on you as part of your application process. So thank goodness that didn't happen with me, but we anticipated that happening in this case. So I contacted our polygraph department, and there's a special program within our polygraph department that you can attend, without getting into great detail about it, that you can attend to counteract a polygraph.
It's just interesting that a criminal organization is vetting a member harder than, like, I've had to do background investigations for new hire for police
Law
officers.
enforcement.
I've had to do help with background investigations to get a real estate license, or just different jobs. They're doing it more extensive than probably most of companies in this country.
Yeah, I preach that. I tell that to classes that I'm talking to, or I do continuing ed post classes, and that's one of the things I try to get across to everybody that attends these is, look at us this week. We're all gathering here from across the country. Everybody's training on various topics, and we're learning methods to further enhance our capabilities. On the flip side of that, these guys are doing that too. They're teaching one another. Hey, this is what you look for. When I was in pursuing membership of that gang, hey, stand here and look for this. Well, what am I looking for? Look for a white male with longer hair and a beard in a SUV with tinted windows, right? So just like we're in here talking about XYZ law enforcement topic, the criminal elements out there teaching themselves as well. And just, if I could give you just a real brief example of that, is I had an investigation with an a Mexican mafia gang member, to where I was interviewing this guy, and he was in custody, and he was a documented Mexican mafia member. But for some reason, he decided he wanted to cooperate, share information. And part of the information that he shared, we found to be very valuable, was that during the course of operating in the gang world, he was in custody previous to this, and he had a cellmate that was an older, he called him an old biker, and he described him as an old guy with a big grizzly beard and long hair. And they were cellmates. And the guy, his cellmate, was in for drug trafficking and meth manufacturing. So as they're in custody together, the older guy teaches the Mexican mafia guy how to manufacture meth. He schools him while they're in custody.
In prison.
In prison. So then they get out. They go their separate ways, but they keep in touch. The Mexican mafia member kind of oversaw the Sereno 13 gang element in this region where the investigation was. So the Mexican mafia member called a gang meeting where he brought these Sereno members in, and then he brought in the old biker. And I'll never forget this. The guy was explaining the setup of how it was. He said they were in a basement of one of the Sereno's houses, and the old man is giving them a class on how everybody can manufacture methamphetamine, right? So just like we're schooling ourselves to enhance our career, they're schooling themselves to further their criminal behaviors.
I know we even had a problem with some of the street gangs in Chicago. They were putting gang members without records in the U.S. military to learn combat tactics and then come back into the street gang, warfare.
Sure, absolutely. Great point. And same thing when I was in Chicago as well. I had a heroin smuggling investigation out of Bogota, Colombia. And two of the individuals that lived in Chicago that were couriers were former Marines, right? And that's exactly what they talked about, was training and how beneficial that was to them as a criminal organization. So you're spot on there.
It's a reminder to be vigilant, or stay vigilant, and continue to update yourself, training.
Oh yeah,
trend.
Absolutely. When I was I feel like an old man now. When I was a young cop,
we all do.
Right? Yeah, I remember I was in the U.S. Marshal's office for whatever reason, and they had a poster on the wall, And on that poster was a scary looking inmate in an inmate's uniform behind bars. And he was ripped, man. He had been super muscular. And he was lifting weights. And it was like, just like you're training, they're training too. Right. So that I encountered that concept way back in the beginning stages of my career. And it rings so true even today.
Maybe we could talk about how important just communication is, right? Because I remember when I was in school and college, I shied away from every speech class, communication class, I every English class. It's like I don't want to write things. I don't want to give speeches. And now you get law enforcement, you're like, wow, all I do is talk and write reports.
Yeah, man, great point. That is an awesome point because you're so true. That's so right. Because I was the same way. I hated classes where I had to get up and do public speaking. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be in front of crowds of people. But you're right. When you get into law enforcement, you're doing that. You're writing. You're speaking in front of people. You're testifying before a jury, before a judge. You're presenting your findings at OCDF meetings or MOCIC intelligence meetings or whatever. So it's super important. And I tell people that essentially when you're in law enforcement, whether you're a patrol officer or you're a jailer or you're an FBI agent, you are a professional talker. That's what you are, right? Because you're talking every day as part of your job. And if you're not doing the job right. So you need to have effective communication skills. You need to be able to look somebody in the eye and talk to them and be upfront and be confident in yourself, all the while being able to read and comprehend what they're telling you and read and comprehend what they're not telling you as well. So that's a spot on.
I think about the old cliche, right? It's you got to talk the talk and walk the walk.
Right. Yeah.
And if you're going to do something specific within law enforcement, like work undercover, it even brings that to light even more.
Oh, even more so because oftentimes you're the relay of the information. You're gathering. If you're the two bikers meeting and we're collectively working a case that's going to grow into a drug conspiracy, I need to accurately comprehend what you guys are telling me about your criminal knowledge, your criminal intent, and what we're planning. And I have to take that, comprehend it, memorialize it in a report, relay it to my supervisor, relay it to my coworkers, inform the prosecutor of exactly what was said, when it was said, how it was said, right? So you're again, you guys know the game, you're spot on. You definitely have to be able to do that.
So for people that are listening that are in law enforcement and they want to get into undercover, what kind of advice would you give those people?
Sure. What I would tell them is kind of like what we said in the beginning here is when you launch from the academy, when you're going through that door into your career, build that foundation. I think everybody benefits from building a general foundation of law enforcement overall. Whether it could be different for different people. It could be maybe a year for you, maybe I need 5 years, maybe you need 2 or 3 years. But build a foundation and learn how to interact with people. Like we were just saying, learn how to talk, learn how to communicate. Because you're going to encounter all kinds of uncomfortable situations that you're going to have to deal with and resolve. So learn to master that technique, right? And when you feel confident that you can do that, whatever direction you want to go, some guys want to be in SWAT, some guys want to be in homicide, some guys want to be in undercover. Once you determine the direction that you want to go in your career, seek out people that that do that and mimic them and pick their brains and learn from them. Hey, why did you do this? What are the pros and cons? If you had to start over again, would you do the same thing or would you do something different? And why would you do that? And it goes down to what we said earlier, talk to people, learn. I think this is a lost art in today's world. Learning from other people that are a little bit older and that have been there and done that, pick their brain because they can help guide you in your career and they can kind of help navigate you. So to answer the question, build a good foundation in law enforcement and then decide what direction you want to go, right? I decided from early on I wanted to work undercover and I wanted to work gangs. So as part of my job, I got to deal with DEA and ATF. I talked to those guys incessantly. I probably annoyed the heck out of them at some point, but it helped me develop what I wanted to do. And I think I can't use the word fortunate enough. I was just fortunate to encounter certain people in my career that kind of helped guide me along.
Think about we have a problem in our society with like why, right? Like it's seen if I ask you why, it's like disrespect, right? Like, well, I said so. I'm the boss, or I gave you this order. Whereas I'm a huge why person because if I know the why, then maybe I can have better output, right? Have a better product. And I really understand, why we're doing this.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with asking that. And I tell people, ask questions until you've exhausted every question you have and you have the answers that you want. And if you offend somebody, too bad. You're just trying to find out, and there's nothing wrong with asking the questions until you get the answers that you need.
And that's so applicable to everything.
Oh yeah, every walk of life.
Every walk of life.
Not just law enforcement.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Well, I want to know more about infiltrating a dangerous motorcycle club, but we're gonna kind of tease the audience with that one. And I think that'd be probably appropriate time for maybe them to learn more about how they can learn more about you and what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. The way people can find out about that is once I retired, I started a business where I do instructing and consulting, and I've taken the different aspects from my career where I received specialized training and I have years of experience, and I've taken certain concepts and developed course presentations or case study discussions about just that, how to infiltrate a 1% outlaw motorcycle gang. The everything that I learned, the good and the bad, I'll share it, because if I can help somebody avoid the mistakes that myself or my team made, all the better, right? How to locate an informant. That's a hidden source or hidden art. It goes to what you were saying, talking to people. I encourage officers, patrol officers, whether you're stopping in to grab a coffee or you're gassing up your vehicle or you're grabbing a bite to eat, talk to everybody, because you don't know what you don't know until you ask, right? You can solicit information from people. You can solicit information. You can recruit sources of information. So that in itself is another class that I teach. And my business is called Streetwise 360. And I have a website that describes all the courses and my contact information and a little bit about me. So you can learn, hey, is this guy, does he know what he's talking about? Right. My contact information is on there and everything about course availabilities. And it's streetwise-360.com.
Streetwise-360.com. All right, perfect.
Yeah, and it's part of that. I kind of I got into the true crime podcast world as well, and I found that I love talking. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I love talking. But just almost more, I love hearing stories from my coworkers or experiences from my coworkers. So I have a podcast called the Right to Remain Silent True Crime Podcast. And I talk, it's going on for about 2 years now. And I've had some fascinating guests from Jay Dobbins, the undercover ATF agent, to Oliver Peck, the renowned ink master tattoo judge, to individuals that have written books. So I enjoy the podcasting aspect as well. So if anybody's interested in that, they can give that a listen too.
Awesome. That's great. Well, we appreciate you, Jim, and your story early on with the gentleman who surrounded your truck had me on the edge of my seat right here. But I'm sure you were too, right?
I was flashing back a little bit there as I told it. Yeah.
So I'm really excited to learn more about your. I don't want to say bigger, but I mean they were, infiltrating a very dangerous motorcycle club.
Yeah,
it's probably bigger, but.
Yeah.
But that was at least planned.
Correct.
Surrounding your truck wasn't.
Right.
But we'll put your information up there, and we appreciate you and your time. And this is great.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.